So first of all, wonderful to be here, and I want to thank the organizers, the president of Cyprus, ministers, industry leaders, who all came together to make this event very inspiring and successful. I'll just say a few words, kind of to tie all the various components together, the ones that we covered on this panel, because I think at the end of the day, one of the questions we all ask is, in a world where we still believe in globalization and we look at the world and we see how Cyprus is connected to different parts of the world, why we still care so much about the region. Hila just showed us the Israeli blue ecosystem, and we heard from our friend from the head of the chamber how important it is, the connection to the Israeli business community. You know, why the region is so critical these days, and what are the opportunities, whether we're talking about the financial markets or the energy industry that the minister covered so well yesterday. And I think really there are a couple of trends that I would like to share with you that shapes this new reality. The first one is, if you look at the world today, there is a strategic shift from globalization to localization and regionalization. And Cyprus is a great example where pretty much the interconnectivity with players in the region, like Greece and Israel, is really shaping and changing the reality very, very quickly. When people talk about fragmentation in technology, especially when it comes to US-China relations, all countries are involved in this story. Cyprus is not the only one, and countries around the world are trying to find a way to build tech resilience using partners around them. So this is kind of the first trend that we all should think about. The second one, and we saw that especially after COVID, but even more now with the regional conflicts, the fact that more and more countries are thinking about how the access to resources is here to stay regardless of local or regional conflicts. So whether we're talking about access to materials, whether we are talking about the strength of the defense industry, Israel is not the only case. There are many, many countries around Cyprus where people started thinking more seriously about how to build resilient supply chain to make sure that whether it's pandemic or another conflict, God forbid, the government and the private sector has access to the right materials and to the right supply chains. So whether we are talking about the shift of globalization and localization, or tech fragmentation, or the ability to build a very strong supply chains and to support the defense and health industry, the story is pretty clear that we have to think about the region in a very inclusive, comprehensive, and optimistic way and view, as Hila just shared with us. And in practice, in reality, there are many examples. I'll just share a few of them, how this kind of new reality is presenting opportunities both for Cyprus and other players in the region. For example, when it comes to financial markets, we saw over the last couple of years that institutional investors that used to invest all over the world, they started thinking more and more about the difference between the local, the region, and the world at large. And part of the story is that many institutional investors, by the way, including in Israel, they invested in assets all over the world. But then you realize that when you have a crisis like we had last year and the year before in capital markets, the ability to monitor the asset, or to sometimes even to visit the asset, it's quite challenging. It's quite important, especially when you manage taxpayers' money, to be able to control and monitor the asset better. So we see, when it comes to institutional investing in the region, more and more interest in investing regionally. So I have no doubt that over the next couple of months and years, we will see more and more institutional investors from Cyprus, Israel, Greece, and some other countries in the region investing more regionally and not only locally and internationally. Another great example is the energy market. The minister explained us so well the difference between access to resources like natural gas versus the infrastructure. The fact that Cyprus is really dealing with a significant infrastructure gap. When you have a reality where you do have access to the source, but unfortunately at the same time, you deal with a challenge when it comes to infrastructure, transportation, and support, you have to think in a very creative way and look at the region and think about other sources of infrastructure. And I think that's really what's happening now on the ground. Now, a question that people ask me all the time, the minister mentioned yesterday, for example, the potential project of the East Med pipeline, or now we are working on the interconnector when it comes to access to the grid and electricity. These projects take many, many years, and they're very, very pricey. Some of them maybe eventually will not happen. And people ask, why we invest so much time, energy, and resources in talking about them, putting them together, and trying to move them forward. And one of the reasons, and I think we really see it day and night these days, is that just by creating a community, by sharing ideas, and by building these kind of projects, there is a lot of exchange of know-how. The region, Cyprus included, is moving forward when it comes to know-how in this space. And there are many, many companies that are now working on the design, planning, and in the future also execution of these projects from Cyprus, Israel, Greece, and Europe, of course, and beyond. So it creates this sense of a better understanding of where the region is heading and what kind of projects are possible, even if eventually some of them will not materialize. Now, most importantly, when it comes to human capital, we didn't mention that on this panel, but this is a very critical part of the story. At the end of the day, the region allows people to travel and to be able to create jobs and to be part of opportunities we didn't have before. Our friend from the Chamber of Commerce mentioned the fact that Cyprus was a wonderful partner when it comes to safety and the ability to provide families with jobs, schools, and other resources in times of crisis. I think the vision is even more than that. I think in a world where people talk about mobility, relocation, the remote working, and just the ability to respond very quickly to crisis when it happens, I think it creates opportunities for people to build companies and create a much quicker vision. And I think we've seen it in Cyprus over the last couple of years, where more and more individuals and entrepreneurs move to Cyprus with the very attractive corporate tax environment. And at the end of the day, as we heard before, they were part of the engine of growth in Cyprus and beyond. So just to conclude, I think that we see a couple of trends internationally that really remind all of us the importance of the region, the importance of building better and bigger bridges when it comes to the relationships between Cyprus and its neighbors, and whether we're talking about institutional investing, financial markets, energy projects, and other sectors. I think the opportunities are significant, and I'm very, very happy that we all came together to remind all of us that even in times of crisis and challenges, and we all appreciate the support and the friendship, there are wonderful, wonderful opportunities ahead, and this optimism is here to stay. Thank you very much.